Rahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today the topic that we are going to discuss is the practical, that is our first practical, internal components of a system unit. Okay, so what is basically a system unit? A system unit is also known as a tower or chassis, is the main part of a desktop computer. There is a main difference between a system unit and a CPU. System unit is a whole unit in which motherboard, RAM, all the components are installed, including the CPU, whereas the CPU is a small chip that is going to process all of our data and information. So this is the basic difference between a CPU and system unit. Many people doesn't differentiate in between them. It includes the motherboard, CPU, RAM, ROM, hard disk and other components. The system unit also includes the case that houses the internal components of the computer. So we are going to study about the internal parts of the computer system unit. The main parts are as motherboard, processor, hard disk, RAM, ROM, buses, registers, CMOS memory and connector cables. Motherboard. As we have discussed in our main lecture, that motherboard is the main circuit board of a computer. It is also known as the logic board. The function of the motherboard is to connect all the devices to communicate and process. All the devices are connected with the motherboard, and through this motherboard we can communicate from one device to the other. The processor can process our data, store our data in the hard disk. Everything is being controlled from here. This is a general diagram. Here ROM is shown, expansion slots where we can add additional cards. Here a VGA card is installed, RAM is installed. Okay, now coming towards the main key point, that is known as the processor. Processor, that is the central processing unit, is the chip on the motherboard that acts as the computer's brain. It does calculations and coordinates the other motherboard components. CPU examples are the Pentium, the PowerI, PC chip, many other, Core i3, Core i5, Core i7, Core i9, dual core, Core 2 Duo. Each of these are the basic CPUs. The CPU is also known as the processor or microprocessor. Some processor diagrams. Basically, what is the CPU? CPU is the computer chip that is called as the brain of the computer. This small computer chip is responsible for all the calculations, all the tasks that are being done. Everything is being controlled by the CPU. The CPU and the RAM. The RAM contains data and the programs. The CPU is going to process all the data. The data bus in between transports the processed data to the RAM so that it can be stored. We can store the data on our hard disk, on any external memory storage device, or it can be displayed on the output screen in the form of on the monitor, or also in the form of some form of a music to be played. Okay, basically we have the CPU instruction cycle. How the CPU works. The CPU executes a series of instructions by looping through an instruction cycle. The very first step is called as the fetch instruction. When the computer's processor is going to fetch the instruction that we have provided it to it, then it is going to interpret the instruction. Interpreting means that it is going to execute it in its own language to understand it, and then third step, it is going to execute the instruction, and the fourth one is the increment instruction pointer. I am going to explain it to you with the help of a common example. Let us say that the first instruction that we have provided to our computer is 2 plus 2. This is our first instruction, that is the computer is going to fetch it. Number 2, the interpret instruction. It is going to convert it into its binary values, as the computer only understands the language of the binary, that is the 0 and 1. Number 3, it is going to execute the instruction and will show us the desired output. Number 4, increment instruction pointer. It will increment the instruction pointer so that then whatever is the next instruction, it is going to be executed, fetched, interpreted and executed. This whole cycle continues on. So this is how a CPU works. The next thing, internal component of a system unit is hard disk. Hard disk is a data storage device which stores and retrieves data. A hard drive is the hardware component that stores all of our digital content, our documents, pictures, music, videos, programs, application preferences, operating systems, digital content stored on a hard drive. Hard drives can be external or internal. So, we are going to discuss it in detail in the storage section when we are on the lecture, that the storage components of a computer system. So basically hard drive or hard disk we call it as, it is a storage device. It is installed inside a personal computer, a system unit. It is used for storing our data, our operating system through which our whole computer is being run. If we are not having an operating system, we are unable to start the computer. So our operating system is being stored on the hard drive. Our personal data, our pictures, games, gallery data, documents, each and everything that we need not to be lost, we are going to store it on our hard disk. There are many types of hard disks. We are going to discuss it later on. RAM. RAM, as we have discussed it earlier, stands for the random access memory, is the main memory of the computer. It is used to read and writing files, as RAM is much faster than the hard disk. But we have also discussed the RAM stores the data temporarily. It cannot store the data permanently. It stores the data as long as the data is needed, or as long as the CPU is processing on the required data, or as long as when the computer has turned on the power. As soon as it shuts down, all the data in the RAM is deleted and is gone out. Okay, the next thing is ROM. ROM, read-only memory. It can be read but not changed. There are many types. In a few types the ROM's data can be changed, but during inside a computer it is non-volatile storage. It remembers its contents even when the computer is powered, is turned off. It's not like RAM. RAM's data is lost, but the ROM's data is permanent. ROM chips are basically used to store the instructions a computer needs during startup, called as firmware. Some kinds of ROM are PROM, EEPROM, CD-ROM, etc. Basically, ROM contains the information of the computer's starting components, such as the motherboard model, the CPU model, or the CPU's processing speed, power, the hard disk installed, the RAM installed. All these are the basic necessity information that is being required for the computer to run on the first start. So this is called as the ROM, read-only memory. The other types are PROM, that is programmable read-only memory, EEPROM, electronic erasable programmable read-only memory. Bus. Bus is a communication system that transfers the data between components. Here in the diagram we can see that all these small golden chip points and the lines being shown on the circuit board, these are called as the bus. Buses are basically responsible for transferring data, instructions to the processor, or from the processor to the input-output devices, or in between different components, such as loading the data from hard disk to the RAM, or from taking the data to the RAM back to the hard disk, or to an output device, or getting the data from an input device. All this data transfer is being carried out with the help of buses. All these small electronic printed lines carry the data and the instructions that are necessary. Bus has also different several types. Control bus controls all the data management. Address bus takes the addresses of the data. The register. Registers are a type of computer memory used to quickly accept, store, and transfer data and instructions that are being used immediately by the CPU. This is a type of memory that is used for the quickly access of the processor. Processor, we know, has a lot of computing power. It processes the data at a many large thousands of milliseconds of speed. So it also requires some memory of its own. The memory of its own is in the form of registers that quickly accept the data, store it, and transfer the data or instructions that the processor is going to use in the ultimately next milliseconds or nanoseconds. So this is the purpose of register. Registers increase the processing power of a CPU. CMOS memory. A computer needs a semi-permanent way of keeping some startup data. Example, the current time, the number of hard disks, input-output devices connected or not. The data may need to be updated or changed. CMOS memory requires very little power to retain its contents, supplied by a battery on the motherboard. As you can see in the figure attached, CR2032 is a lithium cell. This cell is responsible for the storing of this computer's semi-permanent data. That can be the current time, date, the hard disk number of hard disks attached, the RAM attached or removed. All this information is being kept in this CMOS memory. If we are not having a keyboard attached, it will show an error on the boot up process which shows that the keyboard is not attached. So all this basic information of a computer's unit, system unit, is stored in the CMOS memory. Coming towards the last topic, that is the connector cables for our lecture. Here we have the connecting cables. It is actually shown in the diagram is the backside of a computer system unit. Here we have the PS/2 port, that is the keyboard or the mouse port. The previous keyboards and mouses used this port. Nowadays we have the USB, that is the universal serial bus controller, with which we can use many of our devices like the mouse, keyboard, data storage devices, and portable hard drives, etc. The next is the sound card. Here which shows is that the sound out, sound in, microphone or the MIDI game port is attached at the back of it. The main power on the right hand side that is being shown is for the main system power. There is a power supply unit inside a system unit with which a fan is also attached, as shown in the picture, that is used to evacuate and reduce the heat inside the system's power supply unit. Power supply's basic task is to supply the power to all the main components of the system unit, including the motherboard, the hard drive, the CD-ROM, the external devices such as the keyboard or mouse. All these components requires power to work. So the power supply unit, the main power, is responsible for this task. The downwards we can see video card. Video card is basically our connecting for a VGA adapter, or with which we can connect our monitors, external monitors on which we can see a video screen, or some sort of a TVs we can connect with them. Nowadays we have the new ports, that is the HDMI port, with which high definition magnifying images we can use to connect our computers with the monitors. The next is the network card. Network card is has the connector, that is the RJ45 connector, basically used for the intercommunication between two or more system PCs, or inside a network we can connect multiple computers with the help of a network card. And also we use the internet in today's world with the help of a network card. The modem is the previous version for the internet supply. It has two ports. One is for the internet and the other was for the telephone attached to the computer. That was it, the modem. Here some of the diagrams of the previous generations external cables, connecting cables. Connector serial DB9 connects to the serial port which sends data over a signal data line 1 bit at a time at a speed of 56 kbs per second. The older generation computer mouses or modems used this port to connect with the system unit. Parallel DB25M connects to parallel port which sends data simultaneously over 8 data lines at speeds of 12,000 kilobytes per second. The devices that used were printer, external CD-ROM drive, zip drive, external hard disk drive, tape backup device. All the previous devices, older generation devices, use this. Nowadays we have the USBs, with which that is universally accepted, and all the many of the devices uses them. USB connects to a universal serial bus which sends data over a single data line at a speed of 12,000 kilobytes per second, supports up to 127 devices. 127 devices. Nowadays it has increased much more extent that all of these devices can support the USBs services. The devices currently are modems, keyboards, joysticks, scanners, mouses, printers. All these use the USBs. SCSI C50F connects to SI SCSI port which sends data simultaneously over 8 or 16 data lines at a speed between 5 megabits per second and 80 megabits. Supports up to 16 devices. This is also a previous connecting port for hard disk drive, scanner, CD-ROM drive, tape backup devices. IEEE 1394 connects to the FireWire port which sends data at 4 lakh kilobytes per second. That is the for the live video camera, the DVD drive. All these devices used this IEEE 1394 in the previous generations. VGA DB15 used at many of the ports till today, that connects to the video port, and the device that is being used is the monitor, LCDs, we can say LED TVs. All such devices require and use the VGA connector. Nowadays we also have an HDMI connectors that uses. So if there are any questions, feel free to ask me in the live session class. So dear students, this was our today's first lab lecture. It would have been much interesting while when we were have been doing it in the practically in the lab, disassembling the components of the system unit and assembling them again. So, hope you have liked it. Thank you.